Good evening and welcome again to American Gladio. I'm joined as usual with our friend Alex Ioannidis from Chattanooga, Tennessee, the volunteer state. And there's not a lot of volunteers right now to resign from Congress for sexual misconduct, which is it's kind of an ironic situation. We're seeing a very huge schism right now in the worlds of Democratic politics, Republican politics, feminism, and you could probably say the media too, because there's a lot of people in the media that are embroiled in it. Now, we're going to get to a lot of topics here today. I have a lot of stuff to talk about the controversy with the Clintons and whether the Democrats have started to heal the wounds from their 90s sex scandals. But first, let's talk about the most current problem, the Roy Moore sex scandal. Now, Alex here has been defending the candidacy of Judge Roy Moore in Alabama. Unfortunately, it's impossible for somebody to validate their side of the story within 1 month. So, Alex, why are you so sure that this candidate should stay in the race?
Well, because you're innocent until proven guilty, and if these allegations should have come out before the primary, so we could have voted against Roy Moore, so we could have voted for Mo Brooks or some other conservative not named Luther Strange. And again, if Roy Moore is guilty, he shouldn't stay in. I mean that goes without saying, but I feel like I have to clarify that stance because we don't know what he is. We don't know if he's guilty. We don't know if he's innocent. Although over the last 2 days, we've seen a lot of news reports that really make you question everything that's going on. But I'm not jumping to conclusions, but I do presume him as innocent until proven guilty. And this guy's a real conservative. He's going to take on Mitch McConnell, and he will to oust him. And his opponent is a radical liberal. He's not even a moderate. He's quite a hardcore leftist. So at this point, I'm supporting Roy Moore. If he's guilty, we need to expel him and have another election and elect Mo Brooks to the Senate. But if he's not guilty, if he's innocent, if this is a hoax, he's going to make one heck of a senator. So I support that.
Okay, so there's a few. There's certainly a lot of things that I agree with there. I've been talking about the presumption of innocence for about 2 weeks now. In fact, before Roy Moore's allegations came out, I was talking about it in regards to a lot of the allegations as far as the Russia scandal or non-scandal, whatever you want to call it, with Donald Trump, where people that they want to attribute these crimes to people without real concrete evidence, as in documentation, as in video, as in things like that. And it's a real problem. However, Alex, you understand, I mean, you live on a campus right now.
Right.
There's an
Yeah, I live
issue.
at home.
Well, but you do go to a campus. You commute
Right.
every, so
Yeah.
you're not blind to, and I just graduated from my college about a
Right.
year
Right.
ago.
Right. I see what you
So
mean.
there's an issue nowadays that as much as you and I would like there to be this presumption of innocence in every case, the issue of sex crimes doesn't work as smoothly in that regard. Same thing with divorce courts. Same thing with a number of other issues. And you could say that there's other legal issues where it's not even a guilt or innocence problem, like eminent domain, where the law isn't crafted in order to make it fair. It's crafted in order to accommodate a state of mind that the country is in. So, unfortunately, Judge Moore, in certain ways, he's a fossil. I'm not. First of all, I'm not Christian. I respect people; they can have religious beliefs. Mormons, for example, I really don't understand Mormonism, but everybody has the right to run for office according to the law. But what he's done, unfortunately, is he's put himself in a rough situation because the entire country knows he's been kicked off of the Supreme Court 2 times. And in their minds, regardless of the fact that he thinks it's a principled stance, most people think that it means that he doesn't have regard for the law, and that it's really some sort of air that he's putting on in order to LARP for his conservative fan base. So could you describe to me, do you think that Moore's character will stand up at the end after the election, whether he wins or loses?
What do you mean, his character?
Well, this is somebody, he's gone on the news. He hasn't looked very prepared. I'll admit I haven't watched every interview. I've only watched a couple. But this is somebody who people perceive to be a fanatic. He's perceived to be a little dodgy as far as his answers. And I wouldn't, like I said, I agree with the presumption of innocence.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean I trust what he says. It doesn't mean that I disregard the testimony of the
Right, right. He's innocent until proven guilty, but you're really questioning him.
Right. So I can't go and say just because, and believe me, I don't support the Democratic candidate. I don't know anything about the write-in candidates. For me, voting, I mean, neither of us can vote in the election anyway. So it's really a speculation game for us right now as to whether we believe his account. What is it about Judge Moore that makes you believe, if you do, that he has not committed these acts, or do you think that at least in some cases he did behave improperly?
Oh, I have no clue what he did or didn't do. I'm just giving him the benefit of the doubt, and here's why. This is the one thing. Roy Moore has been a man of faith that has always talked about like respecting women, and has lived that out with his wife for 33 years. And the way he's vehemently denying this, he doesn't deny it, and his family members, I've gone to some of their personal Facebook pages and Facebook stalked him and seen their stuff. The way they talk about this, they don't sound like someone who's trying to cover something up. They sound like they're pleading for their life from the heart. Like, I watched the video of Bill Clinton denying his sexual allegations. It was not the same. You could tell Bill Clinton was just bullcrapping the camera. This wasn't the case with Moore. I didn't see that in him. And when I see Roy Moore, I see a man of character. And I'm open to the possibility that I could be wrong. I'm open to the possibility that he might have actually done this. He might have been a pedophile. And if he is, he needs to be expelled from the Senate. He's unfit to serve. But I just don't buy it yet. There's an old verse in Proverbs, I'm paraphrasing here, but it says a good name is better than like gold or something like
that. Better than oil.
I mean, it's a good name. The point of the verse is that a good name is
better than pure oil.
Yeah, it's one of the best things you can have. And Roy Moore has what we would call a good name just based on his track record.
So yeah, I understand, and I'm not this. I think that Roy Moore has he's gone through a career of a lot of controversy. There's a few things, to his credit. Pedophilia. This is not a concrete case of pedophilia. Mm-hmm. Except for one case where it was a woman who was, or a girl who was under the age of consent at the time, and
the 14-year-old.
Yeah, the 14-year-old. So, yes, I think that there would be a problem. Absolutely,
of course.
And I wouldn't, if I knew somebody did this, yeah, I probably, in this case, I wouldn't vote in the election if I could, which I can't anyway. Mm-hmm. It's easy for me to say. It's easy for you. It's harder for you. I mean, you're kind of taking a real leap of faith and commitment that you're a person lives in a neighboring state, not in Alabama, and you're taking such a strong position on this. Another thing I'd like to say, a little different from the Bill Clinton issue, was that these allegations, I believe, were all dated from before Moore got married. So the idea of marital infidelity with Clinton is absent in the Moore case. So it's, for example, if he were to date younger women,
yeah,
as a single man, there's nothing legally or ethically wrong with that. It's just a question of perception. And
I don't think that's acceptable. Just dating teens, like I'm 19 years old and I wouldn't date a 16-year-old because they're underage. That's just that's an extremely foolish thing to do at best.
Yeah, that's just but that's a personal issue of perception for you. I mean, there's the problem I see here is that there's such a range of standards
Mm-hmm.
between Alabama and, let's say, California and New York and Nevada, those states where Woody Allen is, and I don't hate Woody Allen. I don't really know his movies, but he's looked at as one of the greatest directors of the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe he was over 60 years old when he married his adopted daughter, who was like 17. It
I've
was, I
never
mean,
heard this story, but that's sick.
yeah, but that for them, it's like that's water under the bridge because it's Woody Allen. He's considered a genius. They don't care. In that case, it's fine because they accept the artist. And you know, that's getting into another of our topics here, the issue of how the culture is influencing the mores of society,
Mm-hmm.
which obviously in your case, you're more of a religious believer. I'm kind of I don't really see my religion as needing to influence and craft the the media.
That's
But
why I so strongly supported Moore in the first place. Before all of this Washington Post stuff came out, I knew this guy would go and stand up for Christian values in DC, and I wanted a guy like that. I wish a guy like that would represent me, you know? Uh, and they're not. Our Senate candidates for 2018 are awful.
okay, so let me, I mean, pardon the pun, but let me play devil's advocate here,
Mm-hmm.
and think about it this way: if Roy Moore were to be discovered to have been culpable in any of these incidents of a crime, this would undermine the Christian conservative movement. It's happened before. There was Reverend Ted Haggard in the 80s. There have been
Right.
other, and there have been people that they've been attacked for ambiguously problematic behavior, like Joel Osteen, who that was an issue
He's a
of.
heretic. I don't even want to be associated with that man.
Well, I mean that's your opinion, right? I mean, I can't.
No, he
There's
he
no
doesn't
way for
follow
me.
the Bible's teaching.
Yeah, but I'm looking at this from the outside. I have no
Right.
clue what the difference is. So I'm just saying, for argument's sake, there are people that represent Christianity that at certain points in their careers, they end up doing a lot to undermine the faith of the public at large.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying I don't know anything about your church. I don't know anything about what you believe. I don't know anything about your doctrines, but it's a real risk for conservative Christians to back a candidate that's been accused of so many crimes. So I know that
It is a big deal, and it's a huge risk.
right, and so you're communicating with a lot of the people in Alabama. I've talked to like a couple online more.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that their commitment to him has remained? I mean, not all of them have remained, but why do you think he still has such a good following?
Well, there are a few things. There are several reasons. The first one of which is that a lot of the evangelical Christians in rural Alabama don't believe this at all. Like, so much to the point where we look at them from outside of the country and we're like, how can you not believe this? And those guys, they knew Roy Moore as their state Supreme Court judge who fought for their values in the court, even with his Ten Commandments case and all of that. They knew him as that Roy Moore. And it's kind of like if someone really close to me that I would take a bullet for gets accused of something crazy like that, I would probably stick up for him too. This is also though you have that. The second one is it's how leftist Jones is on specific issues like abortion. When so much of your electorate is evangelical Christians, and this guy supports abortion rights up until the late 30 weeks, that's a huge, huge, huge problem. That won't fly with evangelicals. And like, what's gonna happen if Doug Jones were like Joe Donnelly in Indiana and were pro-life? He'd be winning this race by 20 points right now. But what's happening is instead of flipping to Doug Jones, the evangelicals who came back more are just saying, okay, I'm going to stay home because I can't vote for either of these guys. That's what's happening. And finally, I say I'm voting. I'm not voting. I can't. But I say I'm supporting more as a Christian. I'm not urging other Christians to support more because of faith. Because this is a personal decision. This is what we believe about Moore, and I think while I have this innocent until proven guilty presumption, others may not have it. Others may believe it. Others may think he's a pedophile. Others may think it's not worth it. It varies. And Christians, our goal should be to share the gospel, not to elect political candidates. This was a personal decision for me, and I half regret being so vocal about my faith when I have pushed for more in the first place, because we shouldn't divide the church like that.
Yeah, I think that there's a problem with this whole case, which is that it is happening in the middle of an election, and the people of Alabama, they've been given this horrible choice of, believing or not believing these allegations, and then you couple that with the idea that I don't think that they would want a candidate like Jones, and it goes with, I mean, let's say if the same thing were to happen in a very liberal state like Maryland, I don't think the state of Maryland would want to elect a senator that is of the same.
Yeah, like Roy Moore,
mindset.
that would never happen.
Yeah.
Well, Maryland is different because the reason Maryland is so liberal is because of how many black people live there. It's not so much because of leftist politicians, but like downtown Baltimore is like 58% black, I think, and like which is a huge part of their electorate. And Prince George's County, which is their most populous county or their second most populous, it's right outside D.C. That goes 90% to the Democrats, and I think it's mostly black people that live there. That's why that is.
Yeah, or government employees, but the point being that I think states deserve a person that represents their, for lack of a better term, values in Congress.
Right.
It's not to say, I mean, if there's a Republican candidate that is so bad that he deserves to lose, then what are you going to say? Then Doug Jones deserves to win.
Yeah,
that's like a default. That's a default situation.
Yep.
I have two comments in the chat from our former dictator General Augusto Pinochet of Chile. He says if he did it, he can be deposed and removed after assuming office.
Exactly.
So we've Alex I think mentioned that. He's also has asked, have y'all watched his lawyer's press conference from earlier today? I think you shared something about it, but
did you watch the press conference? Two things came up today, and I wanted to mention them. I wanted to make sure all the viewers heard. The first one I read about 15 minutes before we started this. One of them was a lady who came out yesterday who said she worked at the Old Hickory House Barbecue where Roy Moore was, according to that story, a regular, and he took that girl out behind the dumpsters one day after 10 o'clock after they closed and did whatever he did. But she said that girl was 15 when that happened, and you had to be 16 to work at that restaurant. She said that the dumpsters were on the side of the building and they couldn't be on the back. There was no room. I went to that building on Google Street View. That looks pretty accurate. I couldn't see the back of the building, but it did look like there wasn't much room behind at first glance. I honestly actually want to drive down to Gadsden and take a look sometime if I have time, because that was only like it's only about an hour and 15 minutes from my house. But
maybe you can live stream it when you do it, or like take some video. And you can,
that would be really cool. I'd love to
put it on your channel.
I really want to go campaign for Moore if he's innocent, if more evidence comes out. But anyway, the third thing she said was that restaurant closed at 12. There was like a tire shop nearby. I forgot what it was called, where they would come in and eat after they closed at 11. She said that thing closed between 11 or 12. She didn't remember the time, but they would always come in and eat. I think the tire shop closed at 10. My bad. But they would come in and eat after it closed. And she said that this incident happened after 10 o'clock. So that's another hole in the argument. Then you had another guy. He worked with a police force, and he knew Roy Moore because Moore was at the court. And he would go to that barbecue a lot. And he said that Roy Moore was not a regular there. He would have known Roy Moore if he was there. And he said he didn't. I think he said he never saw Roy Moore there. Fact check me on that. The other lady also said that Roy Moore wasn't a regular there. She never remembered a guy that was all dressed up that would come in. which is what Beverly Nelson said. You also have the issue of Beverly Nelson's son saying she was lying. And there was also another family member that had hinted at that. I forgot who it was. And finally, why won't Gloria Allred release that yearbook? Like, she's sitting there. She can't confirm for sure that that's Moore's handwriting, and she won't let it go to a forensic analyst. She says we'll do that when the trial happens. Well, newsflash, this election is 3 weeks away. You're not going to get a trial in that time.
Well, I'll say this, okay? I'm not going to stand up for the innocence of some dude that I don't know. I don't care if he's a judge and if he's a Bible-believing Christian, but these people, they've brought out all these allegations at this period of time. It's clearly there's a clear pattern that it happened when Herman Cain ran for election. A very
It happened to Trump. He just escaped it.
Yeah, but Donald Trump, this type of stuff happens to Donald Trump. So what are you gonna do? I mean, and I'm not a huge Trump critic, but it happens to him, and I guess he just has to deal with it.
Yeah.
But Herman Cain, who was a very well very prepared and probably one of the smarter candidates in 2012. Same type of thing. That was in the primary, but I believe they were trying to torpedo his candidacy so that Obama would have a clear path against a weak candidate like Mitt Romney. Basically, that type of that it's very unfair to the public. I don't, and I think dirty tactics. It's a strategy. What are you going to do? People do it all over the world in elections. You can say it's wrong, but once the people start asking, I want to see the evidence. I want to test the evidence. I want to see whether the signatures are authentic. I want to see whether the testimony of the accuser is consistent with the physical layout of the site. Legitimate questions. Once you put the allegations out there, any question as to the story of either the accuser or the accused is in my opinion, that's perfectly fair game. So, I think that Doug Jones. I'll let you come right back. But Doug Jones, who he's out there, he's taking advantage of this whole situation. If he really had any character as a prosecutor, he would say, yes, you should test that evidence. I should be able to know whether the guy that I'm running against is really some creeper, or whether he's also being slandered. I mean, if these allegations are false, I think he has a legitimate case in court, whether he wins or not, against some of these people. This is a huge mess. It's distracting people. I have a large project I want to work on. There's people that there's so many other issues that we could be dealing with, and yet they managed to skew it to this huge whirlpool of just smut and nonsense. And I think the people of Alabama deserve better, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. So, what were you going to say, by the way?
I mean, you're right. That point on Doug Jones was spot on, and like, I didn't even think about that, the whole prosecutor part. I knew he was a prosecutor, but like, Jones has been incredibly mum about this. He's just talking to people about issues. His campaign strategy, he's really trying to get black people to go out and vote for him because there's a huge black electorate in Alabama. He wants to make sure they all get to the polls. And the other goal is to dampen Republican turnout, especially from rural areas.
Yeah, and that's contrary to the common rhetoric of the Democrats. They always say, well, high turnout means that the Republicans are going to lose. In this case, what they usually try to say is the Republicans try to limit voter access to the polls.
That's bull. You need an ID to do anything in life, and you know what I'm saying?
Well, let me just present their usual rhetoric. I mean, I disagree with them too. Yeah. But all I'm saying is that they're always saying, well, we want high turnout because the Republicans, when there's high turnout, they're scared. In this case, they're scared of high turnout, and they're pulling all of these stunts. And Gloria Allred, in any situation, this is basically this attention whore. And I'm not afraid to say it. She's perfect. Somebody. She's. I mean, what who is she to come up before the cameras, accuse anyone of anything? She's been wrong on so many counts. She's endorsed the Hillary Clinton campaign, despite a lot of the allegations that we're going to get to in the next segment of the program today. You know, I think we're in a world of mess because people like me, we don't know who to believe in this situation.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, all right is such a leftist. I mean, at least get a credible lawyer who doesn't have their name out on every. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that being a leftist isn't the issue. It's an issue of legal standards.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go out in front of the press, look, a lot of lawyers, they will have, you know, they'll take up a very hard case and they'll try to prove it. And the legal profession doesn't have the best reputation, but I think even in the legal community, somebody who goes in front of the cameras all the time and just spews allegations against toy companies and against male celebrities and against various people, they look at her as some sort of cartoon who degrades their profession in the eyes of, you know, it's the same as some of these people like Dr. Kevorkian is, you know, Kevorkian, who was the assisted suicide guy. A lot of doctors probably don't agree with being lumped in with him. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think that's enough with Roy Jones. Sorry, Roy Jones, the boxer. No, Roy Moore, the judge from Alabama. Look, I don't know what to say. I don't know. Obviously, I don't want to support a rapist, and I don't want to support an idiot like Doug Jones.
Yeah.
And I don't live in Alabama. So if you're in Alabama and you see this video, please tell us if you really think that these allegations are going to affect the election, because I think that they already have.
How do you think they've affected it?
Well, because I mean, they're not talking about anything that's important for Alabamans. They're not. I mean, what are the big issues that are important for Alabamans? They're the things that should be the topic of an election. I
Right.
mean, if you're,
Healthcare, education, that type of stuff, right?
yeah, if they have certain issues like let's say infrastructure, if Alabama, I know Alabama apparently doesn't have great road infrastructure, so
It's
it's
okay. From my observation, at least. I mean, it's not great. It's not crap either.
so anyway, let's switch gears here. We might have somebody else joining, Carlos, but I think he's on the road or something, you know, in LA, which basically means he's crossing the desert to, you know, he's probably gonna arrive home in 2 days. So
Yeah, in LA.
anyway, the sexual allegations, they're not limited to Roy Moore anymore. We're really looking at the eruption of a volcano of years and years of sexual imposition and just this sense of lack of workplace standards, in my opinion. Whether it's the workplace or between people that are working with each other. So in the midst of this, people are talking about Weinstein and Clinton and a lot of these celebrities that backed Clinton. And just yesterday was John Conyers, who's been in the House of Representatives since Davy Crockett. And it's impossible right now to know how far this will go.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, what do you think? Why is it that you have all these guys, and maybe one day we'll find some women? Why are they able to just sweep all this under the rug, whether it's in Hollywood or in the media? There's been a couple reporters that have been swept up in this. Charlie Rose, who's a huge interviewer for PBS.
Yeah.
What's like the issue here? What is it about politics and political reporting that these people, they just can't keep their hands to themselves?
Beats me, man. Like, it's just crazy, isn't it? These guys have a lot of power. They have a lot of money. And through that, they're able to cover their tracks a lot better in the sense where it's a lot harder for them to face justice. Um, I really want with Al Franken, there's indisputable evidence. You saw that photo. No
Evidence
one
of something,
can
yeah.
defend him. With John Conyers, this whole we paid people to settle looks really bad. But again, he gets the presumption of innocence in my book. I'm consistent. Uh, it looks really bad, but he gets that presumption of innocence. Uh, with Hollywood, it's just a joke. I'm sitting here because these guys, they stand up on a microphone 24/7 lecturing all of America about how we're immoral because we don't follow leftist social justice policies. And then you see all of these same people getting accused of sexual assault. And like quite frankly, there is pretty overwhelming evidence against people like Weinstein and Spacey from what I understand. And I'm very sad that all of this is happening. I'm also very happy that people are being exposed for the predators that they are, and I'm laughing at the implosion that is Hollywood and the swamp in DC. So
Yeah, I think unfortunately, I'm somebody. I grew up. I was in a, we did have like religion in the family, but it's not the same as what you're talking about in your case. But when I was a kid, liberalism kind of meant that you were into, just edgy music like grunge music or new metal like Korn or something. You'd like these comedians that were about open dialogue and touching topics that generally were not were taboo or whatever. And instead nowadays, Alex, I don't know if you have the same impression, but a lot of these comedians, they'll publicly talk about how they're into some of these values, like standing up for minorities or standing up for abortion rights or whatever it is. In private, they're just as sick as any of these creepers and one of the problems is that they've adopted, how they like to make fun of the Christian right.
right.
And I've made fun of the Christian right too, but when it comes to having a dogma that's inflexible and very orthodox and judgmental, the left has developed something that definitely is as bad as everything that they've accused the religious right of doing.
You're right. It's just sick. They look at us with a holier than thou attitude, and this is me speaking not as a leftist, not as a conservative. This is me speaking from the heart as a Christian man. I'm sitting here and I look at this, and everyone is just as broken inside and out. We all are born with a sinful nature, and we have to live with that the rest of our lives. It's Christ that redeemed us. And this just shows the evil we have in humankind. And nobody has the right to be lecturing someone else about who is better and who is worse. And it's just sad and pathetic. Me and you, we're men. We need to man up and treat women the way they're supposed to be treated. Like that's a challenge to all men listening to. I mean, we look at these people, and these are supposedly our role models, and look how sick they are. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think like the other issue is that instead, like the left has always preached quote unquote tolerance, but it's not real tolerance.
No, it's the least tolerant of the two.
Right. The tolerance would be saying that, yeah, I disagree. For example, I disagree with the creed of Christianity. It doesn't mean that I think that people shouldn't have the right to believe in Christianity. For example, today, the VP of my company, who, I mean, we're a small company, so I see him like every week, at least 3 times, but he comes down to our office and we're talking, and, he's discussing some of the Catholic customs of Lent, and I'm describing some of our customs and what, and it's not as if I'm trying to get him to become Jewish. He's not trying to get me to become Catholic. It's it's a courteous relationship. And in the left, they have to attack anything that doesn't seem consistent with their crazily open-minded worldview. Their view on gender identity, their view on sexual identity, their views on drug use. I'm not against drug use, sorry, I'm not against legalizing certain drugs, but I'm not in favor of drug use.
Right.
So they have this attitude where they are in favor of destroying things rather than just tolerating them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. Like they want to silence everybody who doesn't agree with them. They want to paint them as some fanatic, and they pair conservatives, they pair the religious right, which I'm a part of on to a certain level, with the same clan as David Duke. And David Duke is a disgrace to America. I don't want to be paired with David Duke, and I guarantee you nobody from the right does. And I have a real issue with that.
Yeah, I think that they do a lot of generalization, which is usually something that they think is they they say, for example, with Muslims, oh yeah, not all Muslims. That's the big hashtag of theirs.
Yeah.
Then you see somebody who Timothy McVeigh. They always cite. You for sure have seen it because it was on that meme group that we were a part of,
Mm.
where they say, oh, this was a white Christian conservative who blew up Oklahoma City federal building. Well, it turns out he wasn't religious at all. He was actually a very atheist person.
Right.
And I think that with Christianity, remember our friend who shall remain nameless because he might come on tomorrow, but he doesn't use his real name when he comes on. We were having that discussion. He doesn't really believe that Christianity is under attack by the media. I think that Christianity is under attack along with other types of religion.
Well,
Okay, so Christianity is one example which should not be, and again, I'm not a Christian, but I can see where they want to, for example, a lot of these cultural representations of Christmas, they're making it devoid of any religious significance, of any, they've made it some sort of pop culture fuzz or something.
mm-hmm. Well, look, like there are two reasons why Christianity, like the media, hate why we're under attack, quote unquote. One, we're the most powerful faith, not in the sense of it's in the sense of there are more Christians than any other faith, so
In the
we
United
hold the
States.
most influence as a group. They want to take that down, specifically secular people. Not like I don't think Muslims and like Sikhs care that much about Christians, especially like Sikhs. But like atheists hate us, they despise us, and they want to take us down. They will vote for policies that can do that. They use Islam as an option because that's the second most powerful faith, and that's their scapegoat. That's the biggest reason. And two, they want our society was based on Judeo-Christian values, no matter how much people don't want to admit that. And like Christianity, like they want to get rid of that.
Well, there's an angle where I think we have a little disagreement. I think more specifically than Judeo-Christian values, it's British liberal tradition, which includes a
I
lot
don't
of
know much
Judeo.
about it, but I'll take
Well,
it.
that derives a lot of its ideas from Christianity too.
Yeah, because
So
Anglicanism was the faith of the state.
yeah, or the separation of church and state was a development of the Protestant Reformation.
Yeah, it was a development
So
of I don't want the king to be the head of my church. That not, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, so and in fact, even secular liberalism is
Mm-hmm.
something that they've attacked consistently over the past few years. They don't believe in any of the central freedoms of any of these thinkers like Adam Smith and I'm talking about secular thinkers. So they've actually moved way to the left of these people were not members of the left. They were people that believed in an open society, which is not what the left desires.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so let's move on. I think we've done a lot of philosophizing about the Moore case, which is justifiable. It's kind of a sad situation, but
Right.
the left. Let's focus a little on the left. I wish we had Carlos here, which might not happen tonight. But the Clinton allegations with Monica Lewinsky. Now that there have been all these eruptions of sexual harassment with Representative Conyers and with Franken, where the Democrats have to confront these same demons within their own party, some of them are questioning whether President Clinton should have resigned in 1998. So, Alex, I'm going to share a couple of articles. I hope that you don't go away. But I have one from the Daily Beast. I'll show it on the screen. Let me know if you can see it. And then I'll go through it. I don't think it's that long, but it says, hell no, Bill Clinton shouldn't have resigned. Nothing in the historical record supports the idea Clinton should have resigned over his affair. Saying so plays into the right's efforts to smear and discredit both Clintons. He says, I see that New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who wants to run for president, has walked back her assertion last week that Bill Clinton should have resigned over his affair with Monica Lewinsky. Last week, the New York Times asked her if Clinton should have stepped down back in 1998. She gave a dramatic pause and then said, yes, I think that would have been the appropriate response. Sunday on MSNBC, she backed off a bit. She's saying, quote unquote, my point is that the tolerance that we had 25 years ago, that what was allowed 25 years ago, let me just reduce the screen here because I'm going into GTA mode with the cursor. And that we have to have the kind of oversight and accountability that society needs so that we can protect people in the workplace. So then he says, I'm glad that she's pivoted, but honestly, it was an irresponsible thing to say. Some prominent liberals in the media have said it recently, too. The idea that Clinton should have resigned is insane. It's insane from the perspective of the historical record, which in no way supports the idea that he should have quit his job. And it's insane for political purposes today, given that it remains one of the top priorities of the right to smear and discredit both Clintons in the history books, a project that liberals should in no way, shape, or form be abetting. Let's start with the historical record. The Clinton-Lewinsky dalliance was distasteful and inappropriate. I wrote plenty critically of what he did, both at the time and in my book on him that came out earlier this year as an entry. I think he's just plugging his book here. I wrote, unfathomably irresponsible. But then he writes in the next paragraph, all that is what the affair was. But here's something that was not: sexual assault. I know we have those 2 or 3 other more serious allegations about Clinton along those lines, but let's leave those to the side for now, because Gillibrand and the others have said specifically that Clinton should have resigned over Lewinsky. It was not assault. It was a consensual affair between 2 legal adults. We can have a debate about the power dynamics at play, and Clinton won't emerge from the debate looking too good. Skip over some shit. It was legal, and while he did lie about it, and that's not one of your great moments in presidential history, there was never any proof that he suborned perjury or told others to lie. From all we know, he did not. That was a smear planted, perhaps indirectly, by Starr's prosecutors to whip up a beltway frenzy against him. And this is the final paragraph I'm going to read because this guy's getting annoying. He says, but all this, that isn't even the most important point. The most important point is that the Republican effort to remove Clinton from office was a constitutional coup d'etat. If you're young, all this hatred you see today, this right-wing rage machine, which does have its much smaller counterpart on the left, it all started then. The right hated Bill Clinton pretty much because he was a liberal, a moderate liberal, but as they saw him, a dangerous leftist from the Woodstock generation who had the effrontery to beat a Republican incumbent at a time when conservatives thought the presidency was theirs for life. Literally from the day he won, some people were plotting how to undo the voters' verdict. And finally, years later, he handed them some rope. Should I keep reading this, or are you getting bored?
No, I mean, I've heard the allegations. We can talk about them.
So he's talking from a liberal perspective. He says that is what liberals were confronting. The right's aim was to nullify a presidential election. 2 of them, if Clinton had acquiesced in that, having obviously committed no high crime or misdemeanor, the president would have been chilling. No Democratic president after him would have been safe from a similar assault. They would have gone straight after President Gore on the slightly dodgy fundraising stuff. You know what? I'm going to comment on all this crap. And they'd have they'd have had the added talking point that Gore's presidency was especially illegitimate because, unlike Clinton, he wasn't even elected. I'm not saying they could have driven Gore from office. So this guy goes into all these,
Mhm.
cartwheels over whatever, and he says, Carter was the only president before, and what, he's jumping through hoops here. So,
Mhm.
again, I'm going to editorialize here, and I'll say this guy is so full of shit that his eyes probably the whites have turned brown because
Yeah.
because look, he's looking at the Lewinsky allegations as if they suddenly popped out of nowhere. And for those of
Mhm.
you that don't know, and Alex, I mean, what year were you born? Like 1993?
8.
So okay, so you were born when this scandal was hitting.
Yeah.
The only reason Monica Lewinsky ever became a scandal was because during the Paula Jones sexual harassment trial, he was asked on the stand whether he had an affair with an intern in the White House, and he lied about it. He
Mhm.
claimed that he did not have any sexual relations with
Right. It
Lewinsky.
wasn't because of the sexual relations. It was because of lying.
So it was because of that. And in the same trial, by the way, he admitted to an affair that he had denied when he was running for president, which was with Jennifer Flowers,
Hmm.
a woman he had an affair with for 12 years. So
Yeah.
you have here the Democrats who are standing by a man.
Mhm.
Stand by your man. So they're standing by President Clinton. Sorry for everybody that heard that, but that's their attitude. They're standing by this person who he denied a 12-year affair with a woman who there. First of all, everything that Clinton did as governor was facilitated by state workers, state
Mhm.
troopers. So he abused his office in order to take advantage of women. He abused his workers by having them do his personal business on government time.
Mhm.
This was probably the quintessential example of the chauvinist pig that feminists should hate. And yet, all they want to talk about is the Lewinsky scandal. Well, the reason the Lewinsky scandal ever became a real issue at trial was because, again, presumption of innocence, right?
Mhm.
There was DNA evidence in that case, as opposed to the Jennifer Flowers case, as opposed to the Paula Jones case, where he only exposed himself to her allegedly.
Mhm.
So Democrats here, they don't believe in the presumption of innocence. They believe in the crafting of a narrative.
Right.
So, Alex, what's your opinion? Now, if you
On
were, well, yeah, I'm just gonna ask the question. You're President Clinton in 1998. What would have been the correct course of action for somebody who was caught having an affair with an intern in the White House?
This is what he should have done. He should have gone out. He should have told the truth. He should have apologized. He should have asked America to forgive him and moved on with his life. That's what he should have done. He should never have lied about it. And if he had done that, I probably would have forgiven him if he showed signs of repentance. Like, I'm not going to keep doing this type of stuff. That's what I would have done.
Yeah, I think that the main issue that people have with the Clintons is that they take everything that they do as if they have this divine right to do it,
Yes.
and it's really, and I think both of us can agree, we don't believe that leaders have a divine right that they can't lose. It's not like
Hmm.
God gives you a mandate and you can just abuse it and kill peasants or whatever it is, like they did in the Middle Ages. It comes with certain responsibilities. Now, if you're an atheist, even more so, because there is no mandate. The only mandate you have is from the people, and if the people can't believe what you're saying, if the if the people see you going out day by day
Hmm.
and carousing with these women that you have state troopers bringing to your hotel rooms. Even there's an allegation now, allegation that's been there for years. Listen to this, Alex. I don't know if you know it. The Have you ever heard of Clinton's alleged child from a black prostitute?
No, I haven't.
So there's a man who he's from Arkansas. He looks a lot like Bill Clinton, except he's black,
Hmm.
and he was born in I think the mid '80s. And he has people that have validated his claims that his mom used to have relations with President Clinton or Governor Clinton at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So now with all this stuff with Roy Moore, all this stuff from before that, from the late 70s, I think people that have followed, and I'm not a Republican, I think you are, but we have all the legitimacy we need in order to bring up even the most ridiculous charges, even charges like that. Because if you can suddenly a month before an election craft all this crap about one person, then you can bring up all this stuff about President Clinton from 20 or 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's baffling. And the thing with Clinton, this is one person I want to rant at. Actually, it's Kristen Gillibrand. Have you listened to Mark Levin's show at all the last week?
No, you go ahead, go and freestyle.
I mean, he has destroyed her, and rightfully so. She's such a fraud. So, Kristen Gillibrand, she's the handpicked successor to Hillary Clinton's Senate seat in New York. The Clintons campaign for her. They donate money to her. She's sitting there posting pictures of them campaigning together to her Facebook page. They've all supported her. She gets her job basically because of the Clintons. You move on, and in 2016, Gillibrand is one of Clinton's most staunch supporters. She's sitting there stumping for Clinton in the state of New York. If you remember, it was a pretty heated primary with her and Bernie Sanders at that time. And that was, I remember that campaign. I remember phone banking for Bernie Sanders. That was the only time I ever volunteered on his campaign, because we were thinking if we won New York, we were going to win this race. It was like, this is going to be the turning point, because we had just won 6 of the last 7 states. We had momentum. And Kristen Gillibrand is there stumping for Clinton. And now Gillibrand is saying, I'd really like to run for president in 2020. So it's probably good if I diss the Clintons and try to appear a little more moderate. She's like, I don't need them anymore. And she was unafraid saying something like that. She would never have dared say anything like that 2 years ago. She wouldn't have said it, how long, 7 years ago when she was running for Senate. She's going to say it now, though, when she no longer needs the Clintons, when the Democratic Party is okay to move on with the Clintons, instead of keep focusing on them and keep covering for them. Gillibrand is such a fake, and she's never going to get, I'm never even going to consider voting for her for president. So that's my 2 cents. I had to rant about that.
Well, it's a very convenient position to take, like with Mitch McConnell, where he just dumped on Roy Moore. Mitch McConnell is a guy who, remember, there's been all these ghouls that have run. I mean, Mark Sanford, who was governor of South Carolina, and again, I'm not this huge sexual Puritan here that I say, we should prejudge people if they have affairs. We'll look into their bedrooms. But if you're somebody who's campaigned on a lot of these issues where you talk about family values or whatever, and you get caught, right, they should run you out of office. Absolutely, absolutely. So because you have to fall on your own sword, and it happened this week in Ohio with this legislator that was caught with another dude. That's what you get. Yeah, I mean, what are you gonna? Am I supposed to stand up for a guy who brings up all of these who try, somebody who's all into this morality and family values guy things that much more than me, and then just because he's supposedly more fiscally conservative, I'm supposed to stand up for him? No, because he's basically given up the goose on it. By the way, we're having another person join, not Carlos at the moment, Mad Dodge from Mad Dodge Productions. We'll see when he gets on. Yeah, here he is. So, hey, what's going on, man? Haven't seen you for a while.
Oh, I didn't hear that if you were talking to me. Hi, guys.
What's going on? What's your take on this issue? If you were President Clinton in 1998 and you were exposed for having sexual relations with an intern, what would be the correct course of action?
Was the intern over 18?
Yeah.
then I would admit everything, come clean, and say, hey, I had an affair. And if Mrs. Clinton wants to leave, then she will, but she wouldn't have, because politically, it was always better for her to be married to Bill.
Okay, do you think that there's a problem? I know that you're more of a staunch libertarian than me. Do you think that there's an issue, though, when you have sexual relations in the workplace, like President Clinton did? Do you think that there's an issue there where there's an ethical problem where he should resign?
There is a clear power structure between the President of the United States and a 19-year-old intern. I will give that to you. I am not stupid. But an affair is an affair, and when it comes to impeachment, it should be something against the country, not something in the bedroom, if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think that you do arrive at a problem here, and Alex, I don't know if you agree here with sexual relations. Yes, there could be crimes involved, so to speak. Let's say in the Moore case, there could be issues of ethics with President Clinton, perjury, indeed, which is what happened in the Jones case. That's why after the admission with Monica Lewinsky, the trial of the civil trial of Paula Jones was reopened, because then the dismissal was called into question because the testimony of President Clinton was was revealed to be false.
Had the settlement did people know about the settlement back then that Clinton made with Paula Jones?
Well, the issue with the settlement is that it included no admission of guilt. Meaning that Clinton never admitted that he had his state trooper bring Paula Jones to his suite at the hotel in Little Rock and exposed himself to her. Now, Matt Dodge says he'll be right back, but the issue with that is, with the Roy Moore case, you have a lot of people that are coming forth as witnesses, okay? And let's grant them their day in court or whatever. I don't know if there will be a day in court, because the statute of limitations is gone. But in the case of President Clinton, you had state troopers, police officers that were saying openly, they were saying, yeah, we did this for President Clinton. We were getting him all these these loose women all the time. So I don't know why it's so hard for people like whoever this guy is, the writer here, Michael Tomasky. He says, hell no, President Bill Clinton shouldn't have resigned. Well, there's police officers that have testified he used them in order to get people to come to his suite in order to have sexual relations with him. That's abuse of his office. There's another writer. Her name is Jamie Steen. She says, leave Bill alone. The former president's private life doesn't deserve a public rehashing. In my opinion, you guys can disagree. When you use police officers in order to facilitate your affairs, that's not your private life. You're using the instruments of your position in order to, that in my opinion is an abuse of power. What do you guys say about that? The issue of using police officers as a means to facilitate these affairs.
Yeah, no, that's ridiculous. Like, you can't use the government to cover up your private life like that. No.
How about you, Matt Dodge? I can see that you had issues with your.
Is my mic better now?
Yeah, it's better now. There was some noise in the background before.
Well, there is noise. The kids are getting ready for bed, so I apologize.
Okay, cool.
But no. Okay, first off, when did these people come out and say that happened?
They were already out talking about it in 1993. This was before the Monica Lewinsky scandal. This was probably 5 years earlier.
They were Secret Service agents or police?
No, this was when he was governor of Arkansas, and they were his security detail. They were state troopers.
Well, first off, I don't know how he ran for president after that kind of scandal. That wouldn't have happened in the modern era, I would like to say. But Yeah, that's completely wrong. The reason I asked about the Secret Service was because they're not allowed to disclose anything ever. So if they're all of a sudden blabbing, well, why are they not locked up as well? Was going to be my point.
Okay, so the Secret Service, there is an issue there. So you guys will have to listen to me for a couple minutes while I describe the situation. There's a Secret Service agent named Gary Byrne. I have his book. You know, I have like this whole stack of books here, but I actually I've chatted back and forth with him on his page before, but he has this book called Crisis of Character, and I don't think it's his tell-all tale, because like Mad Dodge said that there are things that the Secret Service agents are sworn forever to keep secret. But what happened with him was that he was subpoenaed in the end by the special counsel successfully to testify, because there was evidence that he found, and they could only get it from him. And he witnessed several of the acts that, you know, first of all, there was an issue. You guys have you both heard of the blue dress?
No. Oh wait,
So
that thing with a white and gold and blue and black.
No, that was the Monica Lewinsky's dress that they
Oh.
found the stain on.
No.
So it wasn't just that. There was a napkin where they found lipstick on it. So they had to subpoena Gary Byrne to figure out whose lipstick it was. And he says it wasn't Monica Lewinsky. It was one of the other secretaries. But so, unfortunately, because of the behavior of President Clinton, like Mad Dodge says, yeah, there's an issue with the Secret Service. Can they give testimony about a president, even though they're sworn to protect him and sworn to keep a lot of his or probably the vast majority of conversations confidential, if not classified? Can they testify in court? Well, you know, it was ruled that they were able to testify, that he was compelled to testify by the court. So Bill Clinton, not only did he set a precedent for being the first president who it was proved that a civil trial could be conducted against him because he tried to resist the Paula Jones trial for sexual harassment. He also became the first president to the courts ruled that the Secret Service could testify against him. So he's kind of enabling all of these limitations on the executive branch through his ridiculous behavior. Yeah, I don't know if I left you guys speechless with that, because you know, it's just stuff. Look, a lot of the issues with Monica Lewinsky, they dwarf some of the real problems that happened back then. People think it was only an issue of Monica Lewinsky. It was not. There were other women, there were other abuses, there were other issues that happened because of it, and it's unfair to say like what happened here. This article where she says, "Leave Bill alone. The former president's private life doesn't deserve a public rehashing." When you're the president of the U.S. and you're using Secret Service agents, or in some cases police officers, in order to cover up things that you're doing, no, that's not your private life anymore. And we're not going to read this other article, but this is another one from Business Insider. It says the Clintons held the Democratic Party hostage for 2 decades, and the sudden revisionism is inconveniently late. And he says many liberals and Democrats have begun a reckoning in recent days of Bill Clinton's presidency and the Clintons' domination of Democratic politics for the last 2 decades. It would have been much more convenient for Democrats to have rid of themselves of the Clintons 2 years ago. So what do you guys say? I mean, I'm not a Democrat. Alex isn't a Democrat. Mad Dodge, I think, is a libertarian. For the Democratic Party, when would have been the appropriate time to say, well, enough is enough for these two freaks?
Okay, so a funny little short story here. I was born in 1984, so this all was going on in what, 94?
Well, the Lewinsky stuff was 98.
98, okay. So I had AOL at the time, and I wrote an email to the President of the United States, Bill Clinton, and I was literally a kid, and I wrote him, and I was like, hey, man, I think all of this should be your private life. I think what matters is what's going on politically, as in domestic and foreign policy, and that your private life is yours. And, I might have been a little kid, but I stand by that still. Now, that being said, the fact that he used the police mechanism and the government to cover stuff up is not his private life. It is his public life, and it should be exposed. And it should be, for the main part, that it shows a long line of conspiracy between all the Clintons, him and his wife, I should say. I don't know anything about his father. But Hillary...
Clinton's dad?
Yeah, Clinton's dad. I know nothing about him.
Yeah, I don't think he really knew his father. But yeah, go ahead.
But I know Bill and Hillary both have been corrupt as hell. They started off with hardly anything, at least Bill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then they grew into be multimillionaires. You don't get that on a government paycheck. That's
right.
It.
Well, the other issue is that the Clintons, and Mad Dodge, I think you can appreciate this. Like I said, they were trying to say that you can't sue the president until he leaves office. So I think that's kind of ridiculous. A lot of liberals today, they're trying to sue Donald Trump every day. You know, they went from saying you can't sue the president in the 90s with Bill Clinton, and now they're suing him all the time. It's like they suddenly discovered, you know, the almanac of American lawyers or whatever. They're just taking advantage of it. And the other issue that we're talking about with the Obamas and the Clintons is the abuse of intelligence agencies, the abuse of our security infrastructure in order to achieve personal aims. In fact, one of the issues that happened with Clinton, one of the people that covered up the Filegate, which was when they used FBI files to attack their political opponents, one of them, he used a military helicopter in order to shuttle back and forth to the golf course, and he got fired for that. The Clintons couldn't cover that up, so they fired him, but nothing happened to them. And this is, I believe there's probably at least a couple scandals, maybe not saucy scandals like this, with the Bushes. And who's to say this could happen with Donald Trump too? But you know that it's been, let me see, it's been an hour now between you and me, Alex. What do you think, guys? Do you think that the power of the presidency and the power of these politicians is just too much, that we need to devolve a lot of the issues, a lot of the authority of the federal government back to local and state levels, so that we can just keep a closer eye on these these weird freaks that seem to crop up in government?
The power of the presidency is way huge, and it's way overrepresented. It definitely needs to be brought to the local level.
What about you, Mad Dodge? What do you say about that? And not just the president, Congress too.
I am a staunch believer in nullification and secession. So you know, I'm a big believer in states' rights. So yeah, my answer would be,
I'm not quite that big, but I am a believer in states' rights too.
Yeah, I think what I've noticed when I was following the Brexit and all of the run up to that campaign, I noticed that even forget about whether you're a liberal or a conservative or a capitalist or a Marxist or a libertarian. When you put government and control at a distance, I live probably 11 hours drive from Washington, D.C. I don't know where you live, Mad Dodge, but Alex lives, about 6 hours from Washington, D.C. Well, we can't.
Yeah, it takes 14 or 15.
Yeah, it's a real problem, and at least keeping things at a local level, you keep these people within control. You can kind of at least monitor what they're doing. It's not to say that, I mean, there was Governor Blagojevich of Illinois who sold a Senate seat.
I remember him.
So things happen at the state level. There's states that are chronically corrupt and almost irredeemable. So with that being said, let me see here what I have left here. I want to talk to you, Mad Dodge. It's good I have you on. You're a libertarian. Have you heard about the J20 trial?
You broke up there for a second, so repeat that. But before you do, I actually live in the Northwest. So if you think 6 hours is a long way from DC, I live in the Cascade Mountains, about an hour hour and a half outside of Eugene, Oregon. From DC over to my neck of the woods.
Well, that's pretty
But,
cool. I used to have a roommate from Oregon. Are you a Ducks or Beavers fan?
go Ducks.
So yeah, I guess Eugene is closer, but
Hope Kelly goes and coaches at Florida on a side note.
so we have I have this article here from The Nation, and I don't know if you guys know about this story, so you might be reacting kind of fresh to it. Let me see if I can get it on screen. So I think this might be our last topic. I know you wanted to talk about Zimbabwe.
We'll do it another time.
Okay, so the prosecution of inauguration protesters is a threat to dissent. So you guys, I don't know if you guys follow James O'Keefe. I do. I think he's a fantastic journalist, if nothing else. And he infiltrated these protesters, these Antifa and other protesters during the inauguration, and eventually some of them were arrested, and now they're being prosecuted, some of them for felonies, including vandalism. And this article in The Nation, it says, the prosecution of Inauguration Day protesters is a threat to dissent. The government keeps expanding its efforts to prosecute J20 protesters, and this should alarm all of us. Late next month, the first mass trial, so this was written in October, so this is actually happening now, believe it or not. It says, late next month, the first mass trial will be held for some of the roughly 200 people facing years or even decades in prison after being arrested during an anti-capitalist, anti-fascist protest that took place on the day of Donald Trump's inauguration. The J20 cases, as they are known, offer a glimpse at the treatment of dissent in this country, and the story they tell us is one of overreach and criminalization. Defense lawyers have described the government's approach as unprecedented, its indictments as littered with fatal well, okay, so they're talking about the legalese here. Sam Menifee-Libby of the DC Legal Posse, a group of activists who provide support to the defendants, was more blunt, criticizing the cases as blatant political prosecutions designed to chill resistance. So what they're what they're basically saying, and I'm coming back here. There was obviously, did you guys follow the inauguration when it was happening?
Yeah, briefly.
So there were some riots in DC.
I remember that.
How about you, Mad Dodge? Did you watch any of it?
Oh yeah, all the liberal tears being poured out. Yeah, I watched it and I drank them up happily.
So there were some liberal protesters, and then there were some rioters. It was two distinct different events. There were protesters. There was the Women's March, I think, was happening around the same time, and then there were these J20 people that they went around and were just smashing cars and Starbucks and whatever. So what they're trying to say here is that these felonies are an overreach of the justice system to try to punish dissent. So what do you guys say about that? How hard should we come down on rioters or people that create public disturbances, given the political climate right now?
Would you like to go first?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just asking if you wanted to go first.
I'm brief. I would say we don't come down on them any harder or any less hard than we normally do. We just follow standard sentencing procedures. I mean, we need to maintain law and order, and we should definitely prosecute Antifa and neo-Nazis when they go and cut and break laws out in the streets. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, we need to protect free speech, but if they're rioting, that's different.
Yeah, absolutely. And depends on what they did. Did they smash a post office window? That would be a federal crime, right? Compared to knocking over a city garbage can. So
right.
So you should take a look at each crime individually because they are individuals. Mm-hmm. And you should prosecute said crimes as, you see fit. Mm-hmm. They did violate the non-aggression principle. They went out and looted and burnt shit down. I saw it as well. I made fun of the liberal people screaming at the sky because, that's fun to do. But there is the element that likes to burn shit down. And they've been showing up a lot in Portland, Oregon. They've been showing up a lot in Baltimore, in Ferguson, and I can go on. These people are not libertarians. They're not out there protesting their government. They're out there breaking stuff and stealing for their own gain or their own pleasure. And it's not okay.
Well, I would say that, you know, I think that this case, it is bringing together, I mean, there's some issues where the government is issuing warrants for looking at some Facebook accounts, at some internet, what do they call it, ISPs, internet service providers, and things like that. Those are good questions. I don't have the answer to them. I usually am against the government trying to pry too much into people's information, but you know, when you're arrested at a riot, or you're arrested in connection to people that did riot, and there's evidence that you communicated a desire to burn shit down, then I don't see what these people, you know, they go into this, they have this activism chic that they're trying to look for, and then they get arrested and they start saying, oh, we're oppressed political prisoners. Well, no. You committed acts that are, they're under the criminal code. They were under the criminal code for decades or longer prior to whatever was happening on the day that you did it. So like Mad Dodge, I usually say, well, we're not trying to put more people in prison for dumber shit. But this is some pretty dumb shit. You know, these guys, they were smashing newspaper, what are they called? Those newspaper holders, those things that you see in the street. You guys probably see them because you both and
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they were they were destroying personal property. I think they completely wrecked some limo that was owned by a Pakistani immigrant. And I mean, this is some of the issues with the prosecution. I understand, like the last paragraph, it says, moreover, some of the actions recounted in the indictment, such as chanting "whose streets are streets" or "fuck capitalism," are hallmark elements of a political demonstration. Yet prosecutors are claiming these acts are elements of a felony. As troubling, one of the superseding indictments accuses the undifferentiated rioting defendants of merely walking in certain directions, wearing certain clothing, observing law enforcement, and not dispersing them, according to a motion filed by defense counsel for some of the defendants. Now, what I think is missing here is that we're going to have to see whether police are going to testify, whether there's going to be other eyewitnesses testifying. And the problem here is that these Antifa people, they wear masks. So how are you able to convict a person based on eyewitness testimony against somebody that was wearing a mask? You can't identify him. So I think it's really a legal issue. And none of the three of us, or Mad Dodge, I don't know what you do, but me and Alex, we're not lawyers, but it's easy to understand that you can't prosecute somebody who based on eyewitness testimony when you can't identify them.
Right.
Yeah, okay, so I know you guys have been going for a little while, and I'm fresh here, so I'll try not to drag you out too long, but I do have an interesting comparison here. And no, I'm not a lawyer, but to quote Glenn Beck, I am a thinker. And I think it's really funny how these Antifa protests are going to get away with it completely. And also, it just came out today that the 4 people that kidnapped the white handicapped man in Philadelphia are not getting hate crime charges. Those were dropped.
You mean in Chicago?
In Chicago. Sorry, not Philadelphia. My bad. Chicago. But yeah, the hate crime charges were dropped. And if it was the other way around and it was pro-Trump, MAGA hat wearing people that kidnapped a disabled African American, there would be riots right now.
Absolutely.
And it's really interesting how these two stories kind of parallel each other, where one side of the political spectrum seems to get away with everything, don't they?
Well, I think the hate crime charges, it doesn't mean they won't be charged with whatever. I think it was false imprisonment was one of the other charges where they kidnapped the guy. So they will be charged with something. They probably will not. I mean, like you said, I saw that too. The hate crime charges were dismissed. Now with me, the issue of a hate crime, the liberals have for years, they've been trying to push hate crimes legislation. For me, you know, if a husband gets murdered by his wife or vice versa, if a husband murders his wife, is that not a hate crime if he hated her? If you shoot your boss in the head or you poison your neighbor, how do you establish a motive of hate when most of these like murders or assaults, I mean, you don't just assault somebody who's, you know, you have lukewarm feelings towards. You're like, oh, you know, Larry, I mean, I hate his suede shoes, you know, but he's okay. It's very hard to establish a crime that's solely based on motive. It's not actually based on an act, right?
May I respond?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. My response is I agree. I am totally anti-hate crime because you can't police thoughts. Now,
Right.
that being said, that's not what's in the statute. You know what's in the statute? If you are one race, or if you are not disabled and you persecute someone of another race or someone who is disabled or gay or transsexual or bisexual, or now the list keeps going on to where you want to fuck animals. I apologize for cussing on your program. Sorry, my bad. I do apologize.
Please, we encourage whatever you want.
But you know what I'm saying. So the thought crime keeps getting bigger and bigger in the statute. But yet, when it's a white disabled boy who's crying for his life, drinking toilet water, and they're yelling, "Fuck you, Whitey," and "Fuck Donald Trump," and "Screw your MAGA hat," and they're cutting him, it's not a hate crime? Come on, man. If there was such a thing, that would be it. And there isn't one, but the statute says there is. So that would be it.
Yeah, that's where I think this is where Donald Trump, he said things that resonated with me. Even though, you know, I was a Rand Paul supporter most of and you know, I was very disappointed when he didn't do well. But what Donald Trump said was that there's a two-tier system of justice, and he was referring to Hillary Clinton, where, you know, everything that she did that was clearly a crime was waived because of an issue of intent, which is not part of the statute. Which, like Mad Dies was saying, well, in this case with these children or young adults that falsely imprisoned this retarded man, this mentally handicapped man, and abused him and physically assaulted him for hours. They had all the elements of intent and all the elements of motive that they broadcast to the world, and you don't apply the statute. Yeah, I think he makes a great point here, where if you're going to have hate crime legislation and you're not willing to adjudicate it equally for every sector of the public, then it's worthless. It's really worthless. It's only worth something for the right people. And you know, I think. Well, what do you say about that, Alex?
I think hate crimes, like, there has to be clear motive of hate, and like, if you literally go out and say, I'm gonna, like, if you go and lynch somebody in the 21st century, that's obviously a hate crime. I think what happened in Chicago was a hate crime because they literally shouted literal hate toward the guy because he was a Trump supporter. So, I mean, it's a murky concept. I care more that these guys are brought to some kind of justice, and in the end, I want them to change their heart. I don't just want to see them locked up.
So yeah, what's your guys' opinion? Would you rather? This is a choice. Would you rather have them prosecuted under a statute that you don't agree with, like the hate crime mandates, or would you say it's better to have them prosecuted under a more objectively criminal act, like false imprisonment or physical assault and battery, as is probably going to be the case in this instance?
You mean like where they push for like a tougher sentence, but you don't have a hate crime thing?
Well, it doesn't matter whether the sentence is tough, but I'm saying that,
like a
would you
higher penalty.
Well, would you rather? Do you say that you would you stand by a statute that you don't agree with when there's clearly a person that's violating it, or do you think it's more important to stick to your concept of what the law should be, which would be that they'd be prosecuted for physical assault, something that's objective, that doesn't require motive to be established? What's your opinion on that?
It's tricky. You can't really be subjective when it comes to this. I don't really know how I feel about it, honestly.
My only question would be, actually, no, I know the question. The answer would be, yes, it would still, the hate crime statute would still be in effect, right? No matter what.
Yeah, I mean, it would be in effect, but
Then I want it prosecuted equally for everybody if it's still in effect. I would push for legislation to remove it. But if it's still in effect for one class of society, I want it in effect for everybody.
Yeah, so I think we'll leave it at there. I think I disagree. I think that it's a law that I simply don't see the hate crime legislation. I think is dumb, and I don't. If somebody gets convicted, and let's say they get convicted on that charge, and then later the law gets overturned, then you release them from prison, and they've still assaulted some dude. Who's to say they've been reformed? So I have to say that I'd rather people not even prosecute using that statute. I think the statute is ridiculous. It's the same as some of these ones where they go by what is it, the mass of the weed that you have or something. It's whether it's commercial or not. So yeah, I think I'm going to close. Anybody have final statements?
I have a final statement since we're going to close it down real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. My final statement would be, yes, I do agree with you, man. But if you look at different situations, like Christopher Cantwell, he's turned alt-right and went to the dark side. All right, he has. He was a libertarian, and I did agree with him back in the day. But he is sitting in D.C. or no, Charlottesville right now, awaiting prosecution on 6 felonies for being at that march onto the statue. And he was being assaulted and pepper sprayed somebody. And he's being held in jail for it, looking at 60 years. And then you have these people who tortured somebody and have all the earmarks of a hate crime, which Christopher Cantwell didn't have. He was being assaulted and defended himself. He didn't go out there and start pepper spraying the crowd. Okay, he was being assaulted. I saw the pictures and the video. But you have these people who also have video where they broadcasted live to everybody, yelling at this poor white kid. So confused, he had no idea what was going on. He's being forced to drink toilet water from some girl who he thought was his friend. That's how they picked him up. And it's all messed up. And if you look at the hate crime statute, one person who is white will get it no matter what if they assault a black person.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at a black person, or 4 of them, who assaulted a disabled white boy, white kid, whatever. And they're going to get away with the hate crime. They'll still get charged with everything else. But they always pile on the hate crime to the white suspect. And the white suspect gets their time doubled or tripled. This isn't the issue of a single charge. It's not like resisting arrest and that's your only charge. This is like assault 1 and a hate crime, which turns it into 5 years instead of 6 months. It's a big deal.
Before we get to Alex, yeah, I think I have to agree with Mad Dodge that in order for a black person to be prosecuted for that, it would have to have been like the victim would have been like a gay person or one of the other people on this racial or minority hierarchy, because in the end it's a social justice bullshit principle. The hate crime legislation, it's not the same due process law that we see with other criminal acts. So that's why I think it's complete crap. And maybe you do have a point. If you can't prosecute a victim who's you know, the motive was hate, obviously hate in this case, then there's no reason the statute should be on the books. If it's on the books, you might as well prosecute it for a clear hate crime against whatever group has been targeted. Alex, what do you say?
On hate crimes, like I don't really know how I feel about them. I honestly think it should be left up to the judge. But y'all are spot on when you're saying like you can't really charge a black person for a hate crime. You should be able to, because hate is an issue that's in the heart. It's not based on your skin color. But like no prosecutor would go for that type of thing, just in the era of social justice, quote unquote, that we live in. And I mean, you got to address the heart issue. Hate is in the heart, and I think I think a judge's discretion can be used when it comes to sentencing with something like that. But I don't think. I think I'm leaning toward the side of just getting rid of the official word hate crime.
All right, so that's about it. We have Augusto Pinochet back in the chat. He just said, "I'm back just in time." No, you're not. We're gonna have to leave. So everybody say bye to our favorite, you know, by default dictator, Augusto Pinochet from Chile.
Hey, have a good night and a happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. I think we're all thankful that we haven't been kicked off of YouTube yet, although Alex has just started on it. So, by the way, everybody, please promote your channels. Alex, where can you find your channel?
What is my YouTube name? Hold on, let me pull that up real quick. I started making podcasts that go for every Saturday, at least every other Saturday. I also have a few fun videos there, like a video of me going on a walking bridge and using pickup lines on people. But crap, how do you see your channel name? That's what I'm trying to find.
You have to go to your the top icon at the top right.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Matt Dodge, I'm getting your channel from the. I'm gonna find the link for yours. So
it's just called Alexander Ioannidis. Hang on, let me try to edit the settings.
Yeah, well, he's finding his channel. I'm Mad Dodge Productions on YouTube. I do the Red Eyes stream, usually 3 times a week. I had some internet trouble for a while. I also have a debate stream. Next debate is Thanksgiving. We'll be talking about the death penalty. Should be fun.
yeah, that's kind of been ignored in the past. You know, I guess I did see that the Huffington Post had this article where they recommended giving Donald Trump the death penalty. So I guess there's plenty of people willing to rehash it. So yeah, that should be interesting. I guess I'll try to tune in that day when if I can remember. Yeah, I was supposed to be on a debate last week on the healthcare issues. It's been postponed a few times, so I'll let everybody know if that's on, when it's on. Alex wants to wait for your channel. I could just put in the description when we're done.
I'll send you a link. This is weird. I had a channel name, but when YouTube changed their thing to like having over 100 subscribers, it messed me up.
All right, so let's set. I mean, we can't go off as a dud because, you know, sorry, Alex, but you kind of killed the momentum there. But Thanksgiving, 2 days from now, we're going to see the Dallas Cowboys. Can they prevent themselves from becoming the colossal failure that having all your players injured has created? We don't have our defensive star, Sean Lee. We don't have Ezekiel Elliott, who's also innocent until proven guilty, baby, but he's suspended. So Alex's Titans are not playing, and
I'm
Mad
a
Dodge.
Patriots fan.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Titans are my number 2 team because I live in Tennessee.
Well, okay, so next debate, front running. Who's worse, Cowboys or Patriots fans? Join us later. Good night. Good night to the people of Oregon and Tennessee, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
All right, have a good one.